Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to be discussing ArtCart, the idea that you could use cartridges on your Game Boy for more than just games. They could be art, they could be music, they could be experiences rather than just games. So, as you may know, I use GB Studio to make my games. It's a drag and drop game engine that lets you create a ROM which is playable on a Game Boy. It also lets you export for the Analog Pocket. This idea was given to me by Bad Dad. He has made this collection here on Itch that has a few examples of what incorporates the idea of an art cart. So the reason I want to share this idea is because I find it really interesting that when you have a cartridge, it doesn't have to just be a game. But what this means for you is that you could use GB Studio not just for making games, it could be for the pure expression of self. I know that sounds very high concept, but let's just say sharing images, like this example here uses the Game Boy camera. It's a game that has a gallery of images taken on the Game Boy camera. So the idea that you can take images with your Game Boy camera, obviously with your phone, and then turn them into Game Boy images. And then have them physically, like you would have a photo album. The difference being is that you can open it up on your Game Boy and you can see it on a screen and use the Game Boy for more than just playing games, right? If we have a look here, you can see this image was taken on a Game Boy camera. And then you can see now it's been put into the game as part of a gallery experience. When it comes to galleries, there are many different ways you can go about it. For example, this one, you're a character walking around. I think this Van Gogh museum is quite similar. But you could also have it more like a menu system, like you would have if you opened up the Windows picture viewer or whatever it's called on a Windows device, where go from picture to picture. But obviously, it's up to you, and the level of gamification doesn't really matter. It's about expressing the art, right? So if you have a gallery, then obviously the main focus is the art, no matter how you traverse it. And when it comes to art, you can see this one, the Van Gogh Museum, focuses on the artwork of Van Gogh, but having recreated it within the specifications of the Game Boy screen. I wouldn't say that Van Gogh would be the best example to use as for an art cart or a gallery, mainly because the work is so detailed and micro on some levels, where there are it's about the brush strokes. But for example, if you were a digital artist or a pixel artist, then having your art displayed on the Game Boy screen and kept in a cartridge might sound interesting to you. When it comes to art, it doesn't just have to be static images. You can obviously create animations within GB Studio and display them on the Game Boy. Or you can have maybe a collection of images, something like a comic book or a graphic novel. And I have seen somebody make a game where you are jumping around inside a graphic novel, but I do feel like that hasn't been explored, the idea of having your comic book and sharing it through cartridges rather than maybe through a web page or on paper. Bad Dad also brought up the idea of PowerPoints. Obviously, we can share our GB Studio games through browser. We can also send them to people. So the idea that we have a PowerPoint with infographics or non-fiction information on the PowerPoint using the visual aspect to explain information, I feel like that's a great idea as well. Going a bit deeper into the idea of text and non-fiction, you could also have a book in the cartridge. I haven't seen this myself, and I would love to know the experience of reading something on the Game Boy screen. I know there is this one here where there is some text on the screen, and it seems to work pretty well. If we go to entries, then we can see, just pick a random one, and you see here, we're in the last leg of our trek to the hub, which is where the real voyage begins. And so you can read whatever you would want to read on a Game Boy screen, which you may want to factor into some gamification like this game has. This one is like an operating system, which I'll get to in a minute. But you can see we've got like a little inventory. We got the readings here, which kind of give you like an output of, the oxygen levels and stuff. So it's creating this fictional idea of of a world, and being immersed into it with the graphics and with the text itself, almost like a comic book, but instead of it being pure panels of visuals, it's instead mainly text, which I admire the exploration of. And this is also a great example of an operating system, right? So I'll go to this one, which actually is meant to be an operating system. So as you can see, this is actually this is a fictional operating system. As you can see, it's kind of meant to emulate what the 90s software looks like. So if we move our cursor around, press J, we can do things. So let's go to games. Let's try War. And obviously, this just looks like a card game. I don't know how you play this. Let's exit off. And we can have a look around. And this is obviously fictional, but just like the last one, it's creating this idea, and it's more like art in the sense that we're not trying to, keep the player playing or progress them in any way. We're just showing them something interesting, right? Like art is meant to invoke feeling rather than blow your mind or get you addicted or however you see a game. It's about something else, right? It's about the experience rather than a goal. And then the final one, which is very obvious, which you've probably known before, is soundtracks, right? So people are releasing their music on Game Boy cartridges. Sometimes it's Game Boy Advance because the sound is more advanced, no pun intended. And it lets them, get voices in or just a larger range of sounds, which lets them create their music more closely to how they, you might hear on a guitar or a piano. But you can still make Game Boy music, original DMG music, and you can share it with the world that way. And mixing this song or not just songs, but music, sound effects with, for example, the operating system, with the gallery, you will create a more involved experience because it becomes not just visual but also auditory, right? And the great thing about the Game Boy is that it's very tactile. When you're pressing a button, you're getting feedback through your fingers, rather than it being like a touch screen where you don't feel anything. You don't feel the forceful nature of the buttons, right? So the Game Boy does offer some extra, life than you would experience with, for example, a smartphone gallery of images, right? So you might want to think about how you as an artist or you as a musician or a photographer, however you see yourself, could introduce that to Game Boy. Putting stuff onto a cartridge is relatively easy as long as you have the right tools or the right people. And obviously you can just distribute it digitally, right? GB Studio is free and you can just export it for the web, just like I have my games here, or you can put them onto a Game Boy, onto a cartridge, and then share them, show them to people. Or you could obviously mass produce them. You could get, a huge shipment of empty cartridges and then put your games onto them and either give them away at conventions or whatever, or you can sell them, right? So I know there are people making money selling their music on cartridges, and maybe you could be making money selling your art through cartridges. And obviously there are many ways, and there are many things that I haven't brought up in this video that you might want to share with me in the comments I haven't thought about. Remember to check out Bad Dad. I think he'll be writing an article on GB Central about something like this. If you have any other ideas on what an ArtCart could be, then let me know in the comments. I'll just put my patrons up on the screen right now. Thank you so much to you guys. I would love to hear what projects you guys are working on. Remember to like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. And remember guys, not everything has to be a game. Think outside the box.